This is just a thought, but what if HSPs and empaths are more prone to addictions? I say this as a self identified, highly sensitive person and empath, and also someone who has struggled with addiction for the past 20 odd years. I usually don't like identifying with labels because when you identify with something and it becomes part of your identity, it is very difficult to change that. But labels are useful for just talking in videos like this. So, trust you all know what a HSP is and an empath is. For brevity, I won't delve into those definitions, but I want to talk to you today about emotional regulation without addiction. So, I've struggled on and off for like the last 20 years with a gambling addiction, which I came out to my friends and family last October, and I've been doing really well since then. Made a lot of progress. I have made another video about that. That's on one of my other channels. But anyway, so I think, well, I kind of know that I used my addiction over the years as a way to kind of escape reality and, effectively numb or run away from my feelings, distract myself from my feelings. Because I was definitely carrying a lot of trauma from my younger years, as we all do, and a lot of that never got processed until recent years, probably the last like 5-6 years. I processed a lot of it now, still got a little bit to go, but I think the bulk of the work's done. But I think the reason I struggled for so long was because I was too overwhelmed by the feelings that I needed to process. It's not even that I was scared of them, it's that they were just too heavy for me to carry at that time. And I think we can all relate to emotions and feelings that are trapped and stored in our bodies that are too heavy for us to feel all at once. So we all have our coping mechanisms or our addictions. Everybody does, and I'm a firm believer that any kind of coping mechanism or addiction is just our own personal way of dealing with things we don't want to deal with. And that's no judgment, everybody's got them. Some are more socially acceptable than others. Some people are addicted to the gym and working out. Some people are addicted to work, and that gets celebrated. And then those people are deemed successes. When a lot of the time, it's probably not to take away from the merit of those achievements, but I watched a podcast once. I think it was the Diary of a CEO, and I don't know whether it was Stephen Bartlett or one of his guests, but they said something really profound that really resonated with me. And they said most people aren't driven; they're dragged. They're not driven towards a goal or an outcome because they were born with just this iron will and just rock solid, unwavering motivation. They are dragged by their trauma. to an outcome. So an easy example, another one, a real life example was, um, I follow a guy called Ty Lopez. He gets a lot of shit, maybe rightfully so, but he has a lot of wisdom too. His bodyguard role, um, he basically was like bullied as a kid, and he went on to become like just this massive ripped like bodyguard who like looks after him now. And he asked him one day, he was like, "How did you get to where you are now?" And he basically said, "When I was younger, I got like mercilessly bullied. So I said to myself, I was never going to allow that to happen ever again. So I made myself into the person I am today." And I think that's true with a lot of people's success. Stephen Bartlett even says himself, like his success, he's been dragged. He was not necessarily driven because he's like motivated from some divine inspiration or some mission from God. He's like come from a like such a deprived background that he resolved to never want to be in that situation again. So you could call it like motivation or drive to, but they're not running towards something, they're running away from something. They're running away from something and they're being dragged towards their goals by whatever their unique trauma is. And I think that's the same with like probably like bodybuilders and stuff. I'm not saying this is everybody, but I think the vast majority of people, that bodybuilder is probably somebody who was bullied for being like ridiculously skinny when they were younger, or got body dysmorphia issues, or that person who wants billions of pounds, like they come from probably such a deprived background where they may have had a traumatic experience when they were younger, where they needed money for something and they didn't have it, and then something happened as a result of that. It had such a profound impact on them that they just was dragged towards a destiny where they would never allow that to happen again. So yeah, you could probably think of a million examples. You've probably got examples of your own, and I think that's the case of a lot of people are dragged. They're not driven, and I think that's like also doubles up as a coping mechanism. The workaholic is distracting themselves from the feelings that they don't want to feel, and I definitely did that with my gambling addiction. It kind of, when you're locked in, you're not thinking about anything else. Like the whole world dissolves around you, and you're just focused on that one thing, and your pain dissolves too, temporarily, and it just gets kind of buried. And as a H.S.P and an empath, it's really difficult to kind of. I feel like you kind of have a lot more to process and deal with than the average person. It's like I get affected by things that other people don't even register. Like every time I see an animal that's been killed on the road, like I always see them and it always upsets me. But like I don't show it like openly or outwardly, but I see every single one and it always upsets me. But a lot of people, like, they don't even register it, like, and some even will just run over them again, but it's just things like that upset me, and just little things really that kind of have an impact on me, and all that gets kind of absorbed, and then you have to kind of process that. And being like, as well, I'm an INFJ, which is a Myers-Briggs type. Again, I won't get into details. You can research that on your own. But again, I don't like labels per se, but I have found that researching a lot about the INFJ, I relate to like 95% of that, which I've never found anything out there that kind of gets me in that way. Like it's just spot on. Better than any horoscope, better than anything I've found previously. It's just like on the money. And just my whole mental architecture, the way I suppose I'm built, along with my own unique experiences, nurture versus nature. It's nurture and nature. It's not one or the other. It's the way nature created me and the way I've been nurtured. Um, all my experiences through life have kind of dealt me a hand where, I have a lot more emotional baggage to unpack than most people. And that's not a bid for sympathy or anything like that or pity. I mean, it has its benefits, like feeling things so intensely and deeply. Yeah, it sucks when shit happens, or when you look out into the world and there's an infinite void of pain and suffering with like millions of humans and animals, and I can't watch the news, or I've had to kind of set up energetic boundaries for myself when it comes to that kind of thing, because it's too overwhelming. But so you have all that shit to process, but it also means you can feel all the good stuff even more deeply too. Like music. Music's a big one for me. Like I feel that. I feel certain songs in my soul, like it just resonates with my soul, and I'll get like literally like just goosebumps, like electricity going through my body. Just lights me up. Some songs do, and really engages all of my emotions. I do kind of engage with music on a really deep level, but even like things like just like nature is in general. I know everybody kind of when they go into nature that they have like a positive experience in nature, but I feel like the depth to which I kind of experience it is a bit deeper than the norm. And yeah, like since quitting my addictions, I've really had to learn how to properly emotionally regulate without that crutch. And for some people, it could be easy. It could be something as innocent as like I don't know, like coffee, or playing video games or something, or watching Netflix, binging Netflix. It's not always as damaging as like an addiction, like a gambling addiction or a drug addiction or alcohol or something like that. But I've really learned to sit with my emotions, which is really difficult. Like I really understand why pretty much everybody has some kind of coping mechanism or some kind of addiction, because it really is difficult to sit with a lot of these emotions, especially like grief and things like regret are like really heavy emotions, and we kind of, when we feel them, they hit so hard and they're so heavy. I think we're afraid to sit with them because they feel so heavy in the moment that we don't ever think they will pass. I think we believe that if we let them in, or we allow ourselves to feel them, they will just crush us. They'll overwhelm us and crush our souls, and we'll die of heartbreak, which is a thing and can happen. So it's not unfounded. It's not an unfounded fear. That shit happens. That shit happens. It's rare, but it happened. it is physically painful as well to feel these emotions. Like some people suffer with chronic pain. I think I suffer with chronic emotional pain to various degrees, and I'm learning to kind of like process that and really sit with that and allow it to move through me. And I think you can do that, like, and it might take an hour, it might take a day, it might take a week, but I think it's important we don't place a moral judgment on our feelings, and we just allow them to be what they are, and we allow them to exist without judgment and without trying to force them, without trying to push them away or bury them or replace them with something that feels better, which again is easier said than done. You know, I've really struggled the past couple of weeks with some real deep, like, emotional pain. But it's weird because it feels overwhelming to begin with, but kind of the more you sit with it, the less scary it gets. It kind of like, once you realise it's not going to overwhelm you or crush you, or it's not gonna kill you effectively. You can withstand it. You can sit with it and withstand it. It makes you that little bit stronger each time. It's like working out. It's like, at first the weight feels really heavy, but the more you lift, the more you do it, the less heavy it feels, and you get stronger. And that's the same with your emotional capacity too. And we do have to be gentle with ourselves as well, because we have a lot of heavy emotions like grief and whatnot. We can't always process that all at once. Like, we might have to do it over like several kind of time periods. Let's say you might only be able to, like, you might only have the emotional capacity to process so much in one go, and then you'll need to rest before you process anymore. But it is a process, and it's something I'm learning to do. But I feel stronger for it, and the more I allow myself to sit with the really heavy shit and not let it, and realise it's not going to overwhelm me and kill me, then you kind of get less scared about going back to that place, letting, like, when it rises up again, you kind of a bit more prepared mentally. So, and it's definitely this wasn't where I was going to take this video, but it's kind of where it's ended up going. What I was going to talk about was like some people kind of misunderstand the idea of emotional regulation, where they think emotional regulation is just you never feel anything and you're always calm, cool and collected, like, all the time, and you're just like stoic 24/7, and you're just like unaffected by anything. And that's not emotional regulation. I'm all for stoicism, I'm a stoic myself. Like, I feel a lot of deep emotions, but I don't outwardly show them. Especially like things like grief and things like crying and that. Like, that's a very private thing for me. Not because I'm ashamed of it, but it's just a very private thing for me to do on my own. It's the way I've always been. Um, it's very rare I'll kind of cry in public or in front of anybody else even. It does happen, but I don't judge myself when it does, because I know it's just my body's. It's a normal reaction, you know. Crying's actually healthy for you. Your tears actually, there's different kinds of tears as well. Like if your tears are tears of grief, they actually carry stress hormones and whatnot in them. So like it's like your body releasing the stress hormones through the tears, um, and it also releases oxytocin, and it also has like an anesthesia effect as well. Um, so there's a lot of physiological benefits to crying. Um, but yeah, it's not about never feeling anything or never being affected by anything. Emotional regulation is being able to feel these things, any kind of emotion, like happy or sad, really, um, and not let those emotions control your actions, and not to leak them onto other people. Not to, when you're frustrated or angry, not to lash out at other people, or when you're in a if you're in a bad mood, don't let it kind of affect or infect other people, affect or infect other people. Because that's another thing I saw the other day was, which is true, that emotions are contagious, for better or for worse. Negativity is contagious. It infects other people, and so does positivity. But it's important when you are having these extreme emotions that, well, for the negative at least, that you don't try not to let it affect other people around you. Like yesterday I was in a bit of a real shitty mood, and I just kind of kept myself to myself, um, and I didn't like let it spill onto anybody else. Um, and that's not to say you can't, like call a friend, or have a conversation, or vent to somebody if you have their permission to, if they are in a space that they're consenting to you having a bit of a rant or a vent. That's fine. You don't want to be just emotionally vomiting on random people. Um, but that's never really been my way of going about things. But yeah, it's about like feeling everything you need to feel, and dealing with it in a way that's not going to affect other people, and being able to self-soothe, and in a healthy way, not in a unhealthy way through coping mechanisms and addictions. You want to be able to self-soothe in a healthy way. So it's learning to self-soothe. It's not allowing your emotions to infect or affect other people. To the best of your ability, obviously. We're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. Like, we're not talking about perfectionism here. We're just talking about awareness and mindfulness. And it's practice. It's a practice. So that's what emotional regulation is. It's being able to allow yourself to feel and process all the genuine emotions that are rising up in you, and dealing with them in an appropriate way, and then coming back down to, or coming back up to your baseline, which is what I spoke about in my last video about the hedonic treadmill. Whereas, like, we all have kind of like a baseline that we all return to regardless of what happens to us. But you can consciously speed up that process, I suppose. Maybe speed up's the wrong word, because you don't want to rush your processing of your feelings. It takes as long as it takes, but we can have the conscious awareness that we want to return to a good place. We don't want to wallow, and we don't want to kind of sink into a pit of self-pity, at least not for too long. Some of us elder emos do. Or, well, I'm an ancestral emo now, actually. I coined that phrase the other day when I was talking to my friend. I was talking about elder emos, and he's younger than me, so I was like, you're an elder emo, I'm an ancestral emo. That's how old I am. I'm an ancestral emo. So, we do like to wallow at times, but yeah, I think it's important to have that conscious awareness that we can choose to return to a happier state and a more content state, and if that's what we want, we can aim for that and bring ourselves back up to that baseline, which is what I tend to do. So yeah, that is my thoughts for today, is on emotional regulation and emotional processing as a highly sensitive person, as an empath, as an INFJ. It's a lot, but I'm kind of getting through it, and stronger for it. And I just wanted to share my experience and thoughts with you guys. Let me know what your experiences are and what your thoughts are, and I'd love to have a little chat with you. And yeah, until next time, see you on the flip side. Peace.